This is Dolynny TV. My goodness, can't even get underway this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel. It has been an absolutely craptastic day down here in southern Alberta. Let me tell you, the weather's taken a turn for the worse. It was snowing yesterday. It's supposed to snow tonight. And it just ain't gonna be no fun for the next 6 months. But that said, the Oilers had a lot of fun this weekend. You want to talk about Mike Smith one more time? Because I want to talk about Mike Smith one more time. Oh, if there ain't anything more that gets Oilers fans more riled up in the past week than the words or the name Mike Smith, my goodness. My friends, it has been a glorious weekend of shouting, arguing, and absolute hatred for each other in the comments on Dolynny TV, all centered around if the Oilers did enough to upgrade on the goaltending. All right? And I mean, it's been glorious. It has been an absolute top to bottom, just absolute almost disappointment to be an Oilers fan based on how hysterical some of the comments about the Mike Smith signing and the Oilers offseason have been. All right, there's guys on Twitter using the hashtag Fire Holland. And if that ain't the most Edmonton Oilers delusional thing we could possibly do, I don't know. Like, here's the thing. We always talk about trying to be better than Leafs fans because Leafs fans are the absolute crazy ones. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there are some Oilers fans among us that are going out there yelling from the top to fire Holland. How many GMs do we have to fire before maybe we fire Bob Nicholson first? That's what I'm going to ask you, because maybe there's another level higher you have to ask first. But that aside, all right, I want to talk more about why Mike Smith was signed, because that came out on the Steve Dangle Podcast, I believe, yesterday. And, I mean, being an Oilers fan, how much time do I spend watching the Steve Dangle Podcast? Zero, because it's Steve Dangle. That isn't our crowd. That's Leafs lunacy land over there in Toronto. We leave that guy to them, and I ain't no Steve Dangle standing in the Oilers group, let me tell you. But hey, you know what? We talk Oilers stuff here on Dolynny TV, right? But problem is, they actually did talk about the Oilers, because I guess sometimes they do, and that's the thing they do. But they asked Chris Johnston of Sportsnet, who was on their podcast the other day, or today, or yesterday, whenever it was. But it was there. It's available on YouTube. You can go check it out. It's like Pumpkin Spice CJ's the title of the podcast or something. But they asked him what about Edmonton and the Mike Smith deal, and end of the day, Chris Johnston believes it came down to Mike Smith or Ryan Miller. Yeah. So just quickly, I've talked enough. Maybe I should give you 5 seconds to chew on the name Ryan Miller, and you tell me if Ken Holland made the right choice going with Mike Smith. Because I think if I put it that way, I think a lot of people are suddenly going to change their opinion, or maybe not so, when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers goaltending. Because here's the thing with Ryan Miller, all right? He started 19 games last year. Ryan Miller is 39. He will be 40. He is already 40 years old, all right? So the Oilers were looking at Ryan Miller as the other option, and they went with the younger Mike Smith. That's saying something, okay? Ryan Miller went 9-6-4 last season with a .907 save percentage, yet a .310 goals against average. All right? That's rough. He only had 2 really bad starts, but he started 19 games, so technically, yeah, that number is going to be lower than Mike Smith's. And you look at it, quality starts 11, sure, he had 11 quality starts. That's numbers. But honestly, if everybody's saying Mike Smith's too old to play hockey, Mike Smith should retire, Mike Smith is not NHL caliber, and you're going to sit here and now argue with me with this revelation that the other Oilers target was Ryan Miller, and you're going to argue that Ryan Miller would have been better after arguing all weekend that Mike Smith's too old to play hockey, Mike Smith should hang him up. but you're in favor of 40-year-old Ryan Miller being the Oilers' backup. Please give yourself a pat on the back for joining the disillusioned crowd, because that's tough. That's tough. All right, Ryan Miller, a goalie that once upon a time won a Vezina at 29 years old with the Buffalo Sabres. That is pretty much, that was in the 09-10 season. That's now 11 years ago, or coming up to at the end of this season, of which we would assign him to. Okay, so talk about a guy long past his prime. So that's kind of interesting, right? You sit here and you think about that. Okay. All right. So our options were Mike Smith or Ryan Miller. Suddenly, Mike Smith looks a heck of a lot better, and I think a lot of people better back up on their comments about Ken Holland and Mike Smith, because let me tell you, if the Oilers would have signed Ryan Miller, if the reaction Mike Smith got, I can't imagine the reaction Ryan Miller would have got, all right? If everybody jumped off the cliff for Mike Smith, imagine how far into the ocean they would have plunged trying to get eaten by a shark if we would have signed Ryan Miller. That's the beauty of this. So, oh boy, right? And yes, okay, sure. What about Ken Holland? Why are those his only two options? Well, guys, we had to secure this third line center. We had to secure the defense. We had to bring in a winger, right? We had to bring somebody in on the left side to fill a hole left by Athanasiou and Ennis. Well, it turns out to be Tyler Ennis. But when you've got $8.7 million in cap space, I'm sorry. Spending $1.5 million to $2 million on a backup goaltender that you know that did very well in the regular season in an overplayed role, I guess is how you say it, right? If everybody talks about Matt Benning doing his job as a bottom 6 D-man when he's only a bottom 6 D-man, think of Mike Smith that way. When Mike Smith is a backup, he does a very good job. When Mike Smith is overplayed and is a 1A, 1B, maybe not so much to the caliber he could as just a backup. Fair? Fair. All right. So, similar to how Matt Benning doesn't elevate into the top 4 very well, right? Okay, good. You get the example. Good to go. Great. Golden. All right. Leave that alone. Well, now you got to secure a defenseman to replace Clefbaum while leaving cap space open to sign Bear. Check. Tyson Barrie. And what is Clefbaum? Yeah, sure. He's the leader on the defense. Problem is, Clefbaum is also a minus 17, but nobody wants to talk about that when it comes to defense. Everybody just wants to point the finger that Tyson Barrie's bad at defense and he's only going to be good on the power play, which Clefbaum realistically isn't that special on the power play by every other team's standards, but by ours he's special because, well, he's the only one that's back there ever, so he must be special. And Tyson Barrie comes in, and while he's terrible at defense because he plays terrible in Toronto, and I mean Toronto fans and Toronto media knows exactly how hockey works, so I know exactly what I'm getting in Tyson Barrie. Okay, great, cool, good way to look at some stats and read your own opinion. I mean I'm not sitting here standing and defending Tyson Barrie as a defenseman. He is lackluster as far as I can tell and understand, but I mean I'm willing to give a guy a shot for 3.75. If we're all applauding what Oscar Clefbaum brings to the table at 4.166, I'm sure as Oilers fans we can find a way to love Tyson Barrie at 3.75, okay? I'm sure we can find a way to do that. And then, of course, right, Kyle Turris, third line, right-hand shot centerman for 1.65. Wow, okay, all right. So Ken Holland takes care of business. Tyler Ennis at $1 million, don't forget about that, all the way around. Because Jack Michaels and Bob Stauffer said the Oilers were probably only going to be able to take care of one problem. One problem of the major 3, which was third line center, D to replace Clefbaum, and backup goaltender. Ken Holland, with $8.7 million in cap space, signed 3 minor league guys, including an organizational third goalie, and 2 minor league guys that may push for the roster in Alan Quine. Seth Griffith is most likely just an AHL body. But, right, he did that and filled winger hole, center on the third line hole, D hole power play quarterback problem, and a backup goaltender that realistically wasn't that bad last year in the regular season. But Oilers fans can't get over 40 minutes in the playoffs, which wasn't even playoffs, so I don't know what you're complaining about. I don't get it. But here you go. Everybody's losing their mind. And the other option was Ryan Miller. This whole time, the other option was Ryan Miller. Wow. I mean, you want to take an L. That is an L if you were complaining about Mike Smith. That is a big loss if you're complaining about Mike Smith and now you know your other option was Ryan Miller. And you're still complaining about Ken Holland. Take the loss. Move on. We'll have a new topic tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tyson Dolynny. This is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm up on out of here.